Welcome, everyone, to the chilling episode of our true crime series. Today, we're delving into the darkest corners of human history to explore the stories of the most terrifying serial killers who have ever walked the earth. If you have a fascination for the macabre or a morbid curiosity, this one's for you. But a quick warning, some of the content may be disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. Let's get started. Number 10. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer, rapist, and burglar who terrorized Southern California in the mid-1980s. Richard Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas. He grew up in a troubled household and was exposed to violence at a young age. Ramirez's criminal career began in his teenage years. He started with petty crimes and progressed to more serious offenses, including burglaries and assaults. Ramirez's victims ranged in age from 6 to 82. In 1984 and 1985, Ramirez embarked on a horrific killing spree. He invaded homes at night, often using unlocked doors and windows, and attacked his victims, which included men, women, and children. He showed no discernible pattern in his choice of victims, making it difficult for law enforcement to predict his next move. Ramirez's crimes generated widespread fear and panic in Southern California. Ramirez's capture in 1985 was the result of a community effort. He was identified and apprehended by citizens after being recognized from a police sketch. In 1989, Ramirez was sentenced to death. In California, he spent more than 2 decades on death row while his appeals process continued. Richard Ramirez died in prison on June 7, 2013, at the age of 53. He succumbed to complications related to B-cell lymphoma, a type of cancer. Number 9. Ed Gein. Edward Theodore Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield or the Plainfield Ghoul, was an American murderer and body snatcher. Gein's crimes, committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, gathered widespread notoriety in 1957 after authorities discovered that he had exhumed corpses from local graveyards and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from there. Bones and skin. Gein was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin, on August 27, 1906. Gein's father was an alcoholic who was physically and verbally abusive to his wife and children. He died in 1940. And his mother became even more domineering and controlling. After his mother died in 1945, Gein became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. He began to collect roadkill and animal carcasses, and he also began to exhume corpses from local graveyards. He took the bones and skin of these corpses and fashioned them into trophies and keepsakes, including masks, furniture, and a belt made of nipples. In 1957, Gein was arrested for the murder of Bernice Worden. He confessed to killing her and also to the murder of Mary Hogan, who had disappeared 2 years earlier. Gein was found insane and was committed to a mental institution, where he died in 1984. Gein's crimes were highly disturbing and sensationalized by the media, and he became known as one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. His story has been the inspiration for numerous books, films, and television shows. Number 8. H.H. Holmes. Herman Webster Mudgett, better known by his alias H.H. Holmes, was an American serial killer and one of the most notorious figures in the history of true crime who murdered at least 27 people. He was known as the Devil in the White City because he built a hotel in Chicago that was designed to facilitate his crimes. H.H. Holmes was born on May 16, 1861, in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. He grew up in a troubled family environment and displayed an early fascination with medicine and death. Holmes attended the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery, where he began engaging in various fraudulent activities, including insurance fraud and scams involving dead bodies. He also practiced medicine without a license. Holmes moved to Chicago in the late 1880s and began constructing a building that would later be infamously known as the Murder Castle. Holmes is believed to have lured numerous victims, mostly young women, into his murder castle under various pretenses, including employment and lodging. Once inside, he subjected them to horrific torture, sexual assault, and eventual murder. Holmes used a variety of methods to kill his victims, including gas chambers, asphyxiation, dismemberment, and cremation. He would often sell the skeletons of his victims to medical schools and laboratories. He went to trial in 1895, and the proceedings garnered significant media attention. Holmes was found guilty and sentenced to death. Number 7. Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper is the nickname given to an unidentified serial killer who operated in the Whitechapel district of London in 1888. The series of gruesome murders attributed to Jack the Ripper occurred between August and November of 1888, although some sources suggest that the killings may have continued into 1889. He is believed to have murdered at least 5 women in the Whitechapel area of London. These women, known as the Canonical Five, included Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. All of the victims were impoverished and involved in prostitution. The savagery of the crimes shocked the public and led to widespread fear. One of the intriguing aspects of the case is the series of letters and postcards sent to the police and newspapers, purportedly by the killer. While some of these letters are considered hoaxes, others, such as the "Dear Boss" letter and the "Saucy Jackie" postcard, are thought to be credible. Over the years, numerous individuals have been proposed as suspects in the Jack the Ripper case. However, the true identity of the killer has never been definitively established. The investigation into the Jack the Ripper case was hampered by the limitations of forensic science at the time. To this day, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. The case continues to attract amateur sleuths, historians, and researchers who seek to uncover the truth behind the identity of this elusive and infamous serial killer. Number 6. Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, also known as the Butcher of Rostov, or the Rostov Ripper, was a Soviet serial killer who terrorized the Rostov region of Russia between 1978 and 1990. Andrei Chikatilo was born on October 16, 1936, in the Ukrainian SSR, now Ukraine. He grew up during the harsh years of World War II and faced famine and deprivation during his childhood. Chikatilo experienced sexual dysfunction and extreme shyness from a young age. His inability to perform sexually, coupled with his troubled upbringing, led to deep-seated psychological issues. Chikatilo's criminal career began in the 1970s when he committed a series of sexual assaults and murders. He often targeted young boys and girls, luring them with the promise of candy or small gifts before assaulting and killing them. Chikatilo's murders were characterized by extreme brutality. He would often mutilate and dismember his victims' bodies. And in some cases, he engaged in acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. Chikatilo was finally arrested in 1990 when he was caught attempting to lure a young girl. During his interrogation, he confessed to 56 murders, although the exact number remains a subject of debate. In 1992, Andrei Chikatilo went on trial for his crimes. His trial was highly publicized, and he was found guilty of 53 murders and 5 counts of sexual assault. He was sentenced to death and executed by firing squad on February 14, 1994. Number 5. Charles Manson. Charles Manson was an American cult leader and convicted murderer who became infamous for his role in orchestrating a series of gruesome murders in 1969. Manson and his followers, known as the Manson family, carried out a killing spree that shocked the nation and left an indelible mark on the true crime landscape. Charles Mills Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He spent much of his youth in and out of correctional facilities and juvenile detention centers. Manson's criminal history began at a young age, including convictions for theft, robbery, and burglary. In the late 1960s, Manson began attracting a group of followers, primarily young women who were drawn to his charismatic and manipulative personality. This group became known as the Manson family and lived on a commune-like ranch. Manson espoused a bizarre and apocalyptic belief system known as Helter Skelter, which he claimed was inspired by the Beatles' White Album. He believed that a race war would erupt between blacks and whites and that he and his followers would survive by hiding underground. This belief played a significant role in motivating the murders. In August 1969, Manson ordered his followers to carry out a series of brutal murders in Los Angeles. The victims included actress Sharon Tate, who was pregnant, and several others in her home. Charles Manson's trial in 1970 became a media sensation. In 1971, Manson and several of his followers, including Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Charles Tex Watson were sentenced to death. See you in the part 2 video guys. Don't forget hit like and subscribe button. Stay tuned.